I start with some words from James Baldwin, who writes, "It is rare indeed that people give. Most people guard and keep. They suppose that it is they themselves and what they identify with themselves that they are guarding and keeping. Whereas what they are actually guarding and keeping is their system of reality and what they assume themselves to be. One can give nothing whatever without giving oneself. That is to say, risking oneself. If one cannot risk oneself, then one is simply incapable of giving." So end his words. I look around at the state of the world and I have a lot of thoughts. Maybe you do too. And one of them is that I wish I could be sure that we were going to succeed. Because I think if I were really sure things would be not easy, but a little easier, because it would be easy for me to commit all of my time and resources and energy to the dreams if I was absolutely certain that we would succeed. But that's exactly what risk is. It's putting something out there knowing that we're not certain of the outcome. We hope. We're sometimes, maybe even often, disappointed. We put ourselves out there not sure if we'll be successful. And though I feel like I've been saying this for years now, I know I have, it's a risky kind of time, this era we're in. In our world, I don't think I even need to start the list of risky things in our world. But in this congregation, we're in transition. I'm just temporary. You're in search for a more long-term minister. You could think of other ways we're in transition, of course. We're always in transition. But it's risky to be in transition, to be changing things, to be letting go of things we've held on to and be ready to commit to something into the future. And as I've said a couple times, but I'll say it again, it's impossible to ignore the era our country is in, a scary, troubling, challenging era, to be sure. Just living and being in this time feels risky. Now, having said all of that, there is one sense, at least, in which I don't worry about risk. If I can, and it's hard to do, if I can take the very, very long view for a moment, as a Universalist, and I really am, I don't worry about things in the largest sense of time, because if God and heaven exist, and I don't know if they do, I have back and forth thoughts about that, honestly. We can talk about that sometime. If heaven exists, then I know we're all going there, right? I'm a Universalist. I believe in universal salvation. And if one or both of those things, God and heaven, don't exist, well, one day the universe is going to end. And humans will have gone extinct by then. The world will end. And frankly, whether we've ever perfected human society will no longer really matter at that point, right? I mean, that's a weird thing to think about. So let me start with a story. The great Universalist preacher Hosea Ballou was a circuit rider. That is, he took his horse or his feet, whatever he had at the moment, and would walk between several towns in which he preached at over the course of a few weeks or however long it took, and then he would start the circuit again, right? He was living at the time in New Hampshire, up in the hills. And so one day, he and a Baptist preacher were riding the same stretch of road, right, between the same two towns. The Baptist preacher was doing his circuit. Hosea was doing his. And if you've ever been around two preachers, they start arguing theology after a few minutes, right? Doesn't take very long. And at one point, the Baptist just looked at him and said, "Brother Ballou, if I were a Universalist and I didn't fear the fires of hell, I could hit you over the head, take your horse and your saddle, and ride away, and I'd still go to heaven." And Hosea looked at him and said, "Well, if you were a Universalist, the idea would never occur to you." I'm less optimistic about us than Reverend Ballou, perhaps. So either I'm not the greatest Universalist, or Ballou was being a little generous in his assessment of the nature of Universalists. Because I know personally, I think not so great things all the time. That's not to say I think about hitting people over the head and stealing their stuff all the time. That's not what I mean. But I have the not greatest thoughts about people, like those who tailgate me, or use the last of the milk and put the carton back in the fridge, or whatever situation evokes those kind of thoughts from you. Ballou's point, though, and that of his Universalist friends, was a good one, which is that focusing on some future reward or punishment is a mistake. And I think that's true even, to contradict myself, if we could be certain about it. Ballou believed quite firmly that universal salvation was real, that all people would have a good final destination. But he also believed just as strongly as we do today as Unitarian Universalists of the moral imperative that we have in this life, that this life matters, that what we do in it matters. Whatever risks we take or don't take, the way we put ourselves out there or don't, the commitments that we make or don't, the communities we choose to join or choose not to, the support and time and effort we give to things we care about or don't. We believe that these things really deeply matter. And so, to paraphrase Ballou, take away that future reward or punishment, and still we have this world to contemplate, this life to do the best we can. We may not succeed since we are limited people with limited resources, and the challenges are so great, but we can try. And try again after we fail, and try again after we fail again. And so, in congregations, this one and others like it, this has been a given for the entirety of our history. We're committed to making a better world, and we'll try and succeed and fail and try again. And at our best, we do it with our whole selves, with our greatest resources and our deepest commitment. So if we knew for a fact that all our wildest dreams as a congregation could be achieved if we went all in, holding nothing back, if we could be sure, then yeah, things would be a little easier. We would know. We could put every ounce of effort behind the work we do in the community, behind our staff and lay leaders. We would put our full selves into deepening our spirits through spiritual practice and learning. But we don't know. We can't know. Not in some concrete, for sure way. Because we do, in fact, do our very best and still fail. Or, to put it better, we succeed only partially a lot. In the decades of this church, people here have tried, and they succeeded, and they failed, and they've tried again. And this is what I think of when we talk about risk. We might fail. We might also succeed beyond even our wildest dreams. My dear colleague, the Reverend Robin Tanner, whose blessing for risk takers and failures we just heard, I think about this every time I think about her work there. Of all the times I've failed or haven't quite gotten what I was going for. And again, I feel like I've been saying this now for most of a decade, but the era has never been more clear that we have to try. We're seeing immigrants treated as if they aren't even human. We're facing the rollback of basic reproductive rights. We're seeing our planet slowly destroyed. Laws that we took for granted, gutted. Even basic expectations of decency trampled. And as people of faith, it's our call to not let that go unchallenged. Already we work in our communities and our families. We reach out to marginalized peoples to strengthen our ties and show our solidarity. We are, as I might phrase it, nurturing our communities, which means reaching out. It means growing our own innate ability to be strong and to resist. It means nurturing our own resources. And it means connecting in new and deeper ways. The work is clear, and so our commitment must be too. And that's the commitment of our minds, hearts, spirits, bodies, all our resources too, time and energy and skill and money. That's what I'm talking about. When we talk about stewardship, we're not just talking about money. It's about how we want to be in the world, how we want to take care of one another, how this faith community helps us to do that better. I first joined a Unitarian Universalist church, the UU Church of the Brazos Valley in College Station, Texas, for a very simple reason, and that was that I couldn't do all those things alone. I couldn't be the person I wanted to be just by myself. Because alone, I'll be honest, my willpower falls short. My insights aren't enough. My energy and my spirit get exhausted too quickly. I joined that church a few weeks after first attending it, though in fairness, I'd grown up in and around Unitarian Universalism. It wasn't as if I was unfamiliar with it. But I joined that church because of what I felt there, that I wanted to be the person that they thought I could be. And it's a big part of why I became a minister, to continue that journey of being the person I might be, of helping others find their paths, whatever those may be. And so here today in this community, I still feel that. The support and the challenge, the longing and dreaming, a commitment to make our values and dreams real in the world around us. This we believe, and just as importantly, this we commit to be the people that we can be and to do the work of making justice real in the world. The great UU theologian Bernard Loomer spoke of this very thing in the context of membership in his congregation. He said, "Church is for seeking as well as speaking the truth in love. Church is for the increase of stature, the enlargement of spirit, the greater freedom of the self. Freedom is not an end in itself. It exists in order to enrich our communal life. Church is for encouraging us to actualize our most creative possibilities. It is also the critic of our limitations and pretensions." He continues, "Church is for understanding and being understood. Church is for confession, for repentance, and the compassion of forgiveness. Church is for reminding us that we are all members of the web of life, that no person is an island, that no person is an individual outside this context of the web. I am grateful for this kind of church. I am proud to be included in its membership," he said. And I go back to that again and again because that's just so meaningful to me. Those are among the things we believe as Unitarian Universalists. We believe we are people who change the world, that we are part of a living tradition that stretches back and forward. In community, therefore, we take risks. We share deeply, even things that feel vulnerable. And not because we expect others to heal us, but because some things are too big for us to hold alone. And in community, we take risks. We work in solidarity with people and groups in our local communities to make justice real in the world. And we don't always succeed at that. And even when we do succeed, it's often not very quick. In community, we take the risk to be serious, to talk about real stuff, to face important issues. And in community, we take the risk to be silly and joyful and spontaneous. This congregation is a place where that can happen. You can be silly or funny, you can celebrate, and you can still uphold our covenant and support one another all at the same time. In this community, we take the risk of giving all we have, our time, energy, love, our money, our very selves. It may not end up being enough, but it's what we have. because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate, that if we give less than we could, less than we have, we're doomed to fail. And to have failed without trying as hard as we could. To try, to give, to commit, is to give ourselves a chance at achieving the wildest dreams we have, a chance to walk and roll and dream and laugh together, a chance to do all the things we want with a commitment to match. And so the question we face then is this: what must we risk in order to achieve the world of which we dream? And what are the costs to us if we don't? May it be so.